Okay,
I'm recording.
perfect. I'm gonna do the same. And hopefully between the two of us, we can manage to get a recording.
Yes, always good to have backup.
Yes. Okay, mine's going, so we can go.
Wonderful.
Hello, Aurora.
Hello, Gary. Thank you for inviting me to do this collaboration with you.
Yeah, thank you. So you're in Ojai, right? Ojai, California?
That's right. Yes.
And how's that spelled?
Ojai.
Okay, yes, mine is still causing problems, so we're just gonna have to rely on yours if that's
Okay, good. Yeah. My hard drive is recording, so that should be good. I do this almost every week, so I've got it set up in a very streamlined way.
Okay, perfect. And maybe you can send me the copy if that's possible.
I'll be happy to. I'll Dropbox it if that works.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Either
okay, good. We'll work out the technical details.
Yeah. So so your flying rainbow lasagna concept, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I would love to, and that's why I'm here. That's what I'm all about. So I deeply, deeply appreciate an opportunity to talk to an expanded audience of people that are interested in lasagna. So the whole idea is I'm just going to grab another sculpture. So I duck over here all the time. I have my little table with all my sculptures on it. So this over here is a shape that I did not invent. This is part of like the basic building blocks of energy in the cosmos. And it's a torus, but it's actually two tori. There's one that is kind of circulating around in this axis, and then there's another one that circulates around in this axis. And that's what makes this four vortex shape. And you can also see the negative space, and by negative, I always clarify, and I'm sorry if I'm repetitive for anyone who's watched any of my other videos. I don't mean bad or wrong or evil or ugly. That negative just means, like in art terms, the place that can hold volume, like the empty space in your coffee cup. So that area of this sculpture has what looks like from the front 4 lobes, and I think you can see in a lot of my artwork behind me, and even like it printed on my dress, which I took from my artwork, this basic 4-lobe structure, which is really the front of an 8-lobe structure. All of that in order to say, like, this is the precursor or the basic building blocks of what we have been up until this point. And when you add an additional dimension, you get to have an expanded amount of freedom, you get an additional degree of freedom, and this shape transforms into this shape. And the whole cognitive leap that is necessary in order to do this expansion, this transformation into having more latitude and more possibilities, and what you can do is the concept of this central point in here, which is the singularity. And I always clarify that I'm not a transhumanist, and I'm not talking about the singularity that when people use that word now in this time and place, they're talking about, a coming together of humanity and machinery, to form some kind of Ubermensch or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the singularity that is much more like what science describes as the infinitely stretched surface of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. So that's the convergence point where all of these, this is time. If I'm starting from the very beginning, and I tend to like jump around too much, so I'm trying to be super, as linear as I possibly can be here. This is time. And this is what time is shaped like. And we have a non-physical body that is also part of the time field. And the time field is alive. This is a living metabolic entity, like a big person, just like we are a person made out of trillions of cells. The time field is a living being that's made out of trillions of lives that are like you and I, and we're circulating around through these shapes, and that's an exploration of the different possibilities and probabilities on these timelines. And everything emanates from and converges at that source or convergence point, or we could call it the 0th dimension, but 0 does not mean worthless. That in this capitalistic society, many people, when I say it is the 0th dimension, they're like, it's 0, it's nothing, it's not good. I'm like, no. It's 0 because it does not require any amount of information to describe the position of where something is there. You don't have to put an address on the letter because all mail goes to infinity. That's like the destination and the place that we're coming from and heading to. So I'm going all of this into describing what is special about that point, because in this shape, and I have to put this down to gesture, what we end up having is the singularity, this purple zone over here, it looks like it's in two places at the same time, but it's not. This is a dynamic shape. And what we have is an oscillation between these two different positions. So what we're doing is taking that the singularity, it has to be single. We can't have two of it. We can't have a duality or a multiplicity or many, many of them. And that's the real magical understanding of all of this, that convergence point is not only within each one of us in terms of like non-physical energy structure or chakras. I don't know if chakras are a dirty, the word that is off-putting to people if they don't like that word. Sometimes I just say energy centers. We have these convergence points at every one of our energy centers, and also at the nucleus of every atom, at the nucleus of each one of our cells, because our DNA is a portal to infinity. So we have a million doorways to infinity inside of each one of us as individuals. And that cognitive leap is to say, what would happen if I connected my portal to infinity, or multiples of them that are inside of me, with one that is somewhere else? That this is the same point as this point, it's jumping back and forth. So that's the flying rainbow lasagna, is the end result of this oscillation of adding another dimension, adding another degree of freedom by moving that singularity. And it's like taking a flat piece of paper that's just a square and being able to fold it up. All of a sudden it can become an origami of many different things, a crane, a frog, whatever your imagination's limit. So this is a tool for expanding the possibilities of our lives, because this surface of the torus, like the surface skin of the torus, it's a collection of events. And is it cool? I feel like I need to jump into the whiteboard. Is it cool if I draw a picture in the whiteboard? Mm-hmm. Good, because I like to talk with pictures, so I feel very comfortable with that. If we say, I draw this little sketch all the time. If we say this is that lower quadrant of that sculpture that I was showing you, and I always just draw in a very simplified terms. These are timelines that start off down here at the bottom and they go upwards like this. But they're not really shaped like lollipops like that. They're really shaped like big, long spirals that go around like this. But I always simplify in this little diagram just so that we can see what they're actually doing. But this is, we have all of these different possibilities that go from both edges. Like I'm looking at a cross section here, and there's only one core central timeline possibility. That is the one that comes, from that central convergence point and then goes all the way back there. So we have all of these different possible timelines. Each one of these little circles that I'm making here where it ends, that's like the snapshot at the end of your life. Like you were born down here where I made the X, and then you're traveling upward in the direction of this, arrow like this. And then that timeline terminates with the final moment of your life that is on this membrane here. And it's a flowing membrane. It's supposed to flow, without impediment. The whole point is, I'm trying to say, the events of your life, it's like, let's say, number plus number plus number equals, the end result. These are all the numbers of your life. And so it's kind of looking at the events of life as an abstraction and seeing our trajectory through time as a very complex form of computation that we're computing with our bodies. And I'm not equating any of us to like computers or being, microchips or anything like that. It's the type of calculation that an athlete does in order to be able to tell, how fast do I have to run, and where's the ball, and how do I jump? And it's a in the moment immersive experience of doing this type of math. And the whole point is, so these are all these last moments of a person's life. And we could say that, death is not success. Death is not solving the equation. Making it through the wormhole and getting back to infinity, that's solving the equation. So I'll go back to my face, if we rearrange the skin of the torus with this flying rainbow lasagna oscillation jumping up and down, it means we get to rearrange the last moments of life or death. We can rearrange and redefine what it is to die. And we can take those basic numbers or those basic building blocks and put them into new combinations so that, hey, we don't actually have to die. We can realign with that central core possibility. So a lot of this happens by changing the dance of the DNA. And I know I feel like I'm like running my moving mouth parts here a lot. Do you need to jump in? Are there questions? Do I need to stop for a moment?
On the diagram you were drawing on, is that on your rainbow lasagna, or is that on the original torus shape?
That is what I call the bottom quadrant of this original torus shape. Like this over here, we can see that it's a vortex. Like that's a three-dimensional little, spout, like a spigot that is sticking up. And that is, if I held it up like this, just put my sculpture down, it's shaped like a bullseye. So the outer periphery is usually where everyone starts at birth and begins to explore possibilities where you die almost instantaneously. Like, the umbilical cord is wrapped around the neck, or there's a pathogenic infection or something like that, you die in a day. And then you have to circulate back and try again. And the whole point is we were never intended to have to experiment with all of that peripheral possibility, that just like in our eyeball, we have a focal point. And what we're trying to do is stay focused on that focal point. The original intention for like the musical score of the cosmos was that we would go directly into the bullseye, like come from that convergence point and go back to that convergence point and not have to mess around with any of these other possibilities that are known as death. Like our intended trajectory was one of immortality, and I'll hold it in the sideways view so you can see it now. Coming from here, assembling out into the physical world and then circulating back, or doing like out, down, out, down, and then basically reassembling right here in the middle, and then going back up to the central core. And that it's only because our genes, our DNA, have been degraded in their dance movements, and also our perception, our higher faculties, have been degraded in our ability to see. It's like we now have a car, like physical body is a car, that doesn't have an effective steering wheel and doesn't have an effective windshield. Because if you asked most people, is it normal to see the future, or is that only for special people? Most people would say that's a superhuman thing. That's not a normal thing. We're not supposed to be able to see the future, but the truth is we're supposed to be able to see the future. That's a basic part of who we are. It, like on the foundation level, has been taken away from us, and that's why we're constantly bumping into the membrane of death, like hitting the guardrail on the highway instead of driving down the middle of the highway. So flying rainbow lasagna, this is a way of reweaving the genes, the genetic dance. And I hope you can see, if I hold this up to the camera in just the right way, this kind of crossing point here, where you can see there's like a line that is just like DNA that goes in front of the sculpture. And then there's a line that goes behind the sculpture where my white pen is crossing. And that crossing point is like so hard to describe with my words, but easier in a picture. I hope that you're seeing it. This becomes a genetic placeholder. So at the time in replication of DNA, when it is split apart into a Y shape, for RNA replication, that what you can do is place a flying rainbow lasagna in that empty space, like hold that empty space open with this placeholder. So not only does it stabilize it, but then it also allows for different genetic partners to do-si-do, because usually it's just like you can only dance with the person across from you, and that's always the way it's going to be. And when you place the flying rainbow lasagna in, and it's moving and it's spinning and it's oscillating, it means that there are more variables. If we only have 4 notes that we're working with in this jazz song, and it's been a certain song up until this point, and the song has been one of aging and decrepitude and eventual death, and not being able to see the future and hitting the membrane of death, we can take those notes, just like you can take the notes of a piano and rearrange them into a new song. And the song can be one of all of a sudden being able to see with inner vision and being able to sense the future and being empowered, like having a steering wheel and being able to choose which timeline or which set of experiences we're having. How about even being able to write the script, not just following like some fated or destined experience that something else has created for us, not just following the musical score, but that's what I call it. It's like being a jazz musician, where you can innovate and be spontaneous in the moment. And all of that spontaneity is also part of who we are as organic embodied beings that have creative life force. And that is the strength of having a body and being embodied, because that creativity is far beyond the levels of possibility of an AI, like a machine-based intelligence that is based mostly in logic and does not have a connection to that convergence point. It doesn't come from the source. It's not about experiencing that love tone. When I say love, I'm not talking about romantic partnership love, but I'm talking about like that abstract tone, that's the fuel that makes this entire time field flow.
The tone that gives the opportunity for abundance and multiple choices rather than just one.
I would say that tone is the food of higher dimensional beings. It's the real food, and the tone is created by an equal giving and receiving. So I like to say, when we are in the time field And when we're moving at one moment per moment. So when I am not thinking about the past, I'm not clinging to the past or like any of the things that I've had in previous experiences. And when I'm not grasping at the future with my mind, when I'm not expecting and trying to use my mind to artificially jump the gun and get something sooner than it's actually supposed to come,
Right.
then I'm in the moment. And that is when I'm emitting love. It's literally cosmic lovemaking. So we've been given these hacked human operating systems, the human mind. That is what separates us or distinguishes us from other beautiful animals, you know, like whatever, chickens or squirrels, that we are able to think about the past, we are able to anticipate the future, and that we spend a great deal of our time dispersing our consciousness. Instead of having our consciousness focused like a laser completely on the profundity of the moment now, we have it dispersed into, you know, when someone pushed you on the playground in third grade, or what's going to happen next Tuesday, and everything like that, that disempowers our actual creative capacity. And that the real way to be creative is not to disperse your mind, not to think about tomorrow or next week or all the things you have to do, or be clinging to all the things that we've already experienced, but be completely embedded in the moment now. And that's when we create that love tone. And then we're like musicians playing with the band. We're actually connecting with the symphony of life. And that's part of the beginning of being a good musician, with the instrument of our body, like playing with the vibrating strings of our DNA.
Right. As far as you were talking about when, you know, you're hitting the membrane on outside edges, you're saying that's sort of like having to experience every single possibility, good, bad, and ugly, in order to make it out eventually. And you're saying that's incorrect and it's supposed to be more harmonious, right?
Definitely. Like if I were the great composer of the music, I wouldn't say, okay, first what I want you to do, like if the piano has 88 keys, first I want you to explore all of the 87 wrong notes that you could possibly play in this moment, and then finally find the right note and play that note. No, I would say, hey, if I'm the great composer, I would say, please become musically literate. Please have an inner eye of insight. Please be able to look at these patterns and understand them and embody them internally. And then please follow the music, like perceive the music patterns and then follow the music patterns. And when I say that, what I really mean is do and say and think and believe and embody the right things. And it's about our belief system, but it's also about our behavior. It's about our ego structure and how we approach the world. That basically this shape is a refinery for characteristics. That there are certain characteristics or aspects of self that are part of the overarching personality of this larger meta construct that we are within, this larger time being. And then there are certain personality characteristics that are not a part of the larger entity. And we're in this refinery trying to figure out who is the real me, who is not the real me. What are my real thoughts that actually arise from me internally, as opposed to intrusive thoughts that come from, you know, I call these membranes here, like the meniscus between worlds. I call that the interstices, or these, you know, membranes between worlds. It's also hell. And that is where these undigested emotional experiences of beings that were once living or semi-alive, they sit there and they have not yet resolved their journey. And they are trying to be impediments to people like you and I that are in the time field. And we are trying to move through time and stay alive. So they have genetic backdoors to be able to, you know, I want to say talk shit to us. They're like peanut gallery, you know, always intruding with their own thoughts. And their whole idea is to see if they can misguide people like you and I into crashing into the membrane of death. And that it is the greatest challenge of our lives to not listen to those voices, not listen to those intrusive thoughts or beings that aren't really us, and only focus on that which arises from within, like your real personality characteristics and your real thoughts. It's like being a total independent musician and not playing any notes because someone else tells you to play them, doing what you really know is right inside. So that is a very tall order. Like we live in this time and place right now where mostly we're domesticated humans in a domesticated format. And that means that you have to work in order to get money and get a pat on the head. That's like being a good dog. Like if they pat you on the head with money, that's like, yes, you are a good domesticated human. You've done the right things. And what we're trying to do is be like, no, I want to be a jazz musician of the timeline. I don't want to just dig a ditch because my boss tells me to go do it and then I have $10 in my pocket. What I want to do is do all the things that I know are right for me to do with my body. Everything from body posture. Like when we send little kids to school and they're taught that they have to sit in a chair in a certain way, it's literally, it is changing the functioning of their physicality when kids want to get up and run around and be free and stretch and move. And that is it's the beginning of that constraint and domestication process. So it has to do with our education system, and it also has to do with the idea of having an externalized authority figure like mommy or daddy or a teacher or a boss or a president of the United States or a pope or anything like that. We're talking about breaking deeply entrenched patterns of domestication in humanity so that we can be free. And I'm all about, like, that is my whole gig, is freedom is a totality experience. That it's not okay if there's one little tiny, area of the cosmos where there's slavery, like 99% freedom and then just 1% not free. That's not okay. That's not actual freedom for the whole 99%, because this whole time field, like when I point to these paintings in the background, it's like this complex harmonic living embroidery where each person is sending out thoughts and energy and emanations, and that there's other people that depend on those emanations. And if you're not emanating in the right way or in the right amount or in the right direction, all the rest of the beings don't get that crucial, we could call it food or nourishment or interaction. So what we've been experiencing on Earth in our own genetic degradation, this hurts the music of the entire symphony. It doesn't just hurt us. And so our individual quest for freedom, like as a person, as an embodied person in this epidermis, each one of us is trying to do this. And as humanity, as a social sculpture, we're trying to do this. And as a planet, the planet herself is trying to move into this level of pure abstract freedom. That helps the entire band. The entire band is here helping us. Like, we're totally not alone, even though it might feel very isolated. We've been under great duress. We are totally not alone. We're acting with this entire symphony, but part of it has been genetic squashing makes it difficult for us to perceive beyond those occupiers of the interstices. They're very loud and they're very, like, they're crappy and idiotic, and it's hard. They're like the worst musicians in the band, and they're the loudest musicians. And it's like, would you shut up already so that we can hear the good players who just might be much more subtle?
Right. It would be something similar to, if I could try to rephrase, in our situation, to like homeless people, for example. We're mentally placing them outside or different than us, but that's also acting as if we're not sharing the same space and shifting the responsibility for them off onto the government, or they're lazy, or whatever, however many excuses we can come up with. But it doesn't change the fact that they're intrinsically linked with you, even if you're just looking at them.
Absolutely. What a beautiful example, beautiful analogy. And if we looked at the time field and we say, hey, in the time field, there's people who are alive, like you and I, in bodies circulating around in here. And then there's beings that are stuck on the interstices. They are homeless. They are homeless consciousnesses, and they don't have a body to act within. I like to say sometimes they're like bad musicians who smash their guitar on stage, and now they don't get to be in the band. And they really want to hijack our instruments. They're like, oh, let me speak through you. Let me in. And if it's not consensual, it's definitely, they do it non-consensually all the time. That's what addiction is. That is how I really interpret addiction, that the embodied human is not in control of their own behavior to the point that the disembodied human is making them do things and ingest substances that kill them, that are bad for the embodiment. And then you end up on the membrane of death with all of the other dead people. It's like they make children or take prisoners. Like, it's not just, or this, in the same way that a pathogenic cell in a body can infect a healthy cell next to it, and then it makes the infection grow and grow and grow. So yeah, this problem of being stuck on the interstices, like consciousnesses that they're like lost, they're like not connected to source. Yeah,
would that be our Abrahamic hells? Is it a similar analogy?
Yes, in fact, I would say that it's literally the hell realm, and that the economy of hell is what our present capitalistic society is based upon. That our physical manifest society is based upon their non-physical or purely mental / energetic society, because it's all about the first guy who created hell is the guy at the top of the pyramid, and everybody, all the kickbacks all go up to that guy it's like a pyramid scheme. It's the original pyramid scheme. And in any multi-level marketing pyramid scheme, what you have to do is you have to keep on bringing in fresh participants. And they're at the bottom. I don't mean to interrupt you. I know I tend to go a lot. I'm like an iPod.
No,
Like you just press play, I just keep going.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes, that hell is always trying to recruit new recruits, new low-level demons. And when I say demon now, I'm non-biblical literalist at all. Like no offense to anyone who reads the Bible and takes it literally, but I'm really talking about demon as being a word for an unresolved residue of experience, like literally embodied suffering. And that's what those points of consciousness are. And all, just like freedom is a totality experience, consciousness is a totality experience. So what is happening to one little point of a consciousness somewhere is affecting all consciousness everywhere. So that's this whole idea of Flying Rainbow Lasagna is coming up with an idea and a solution, kind of like a solution to a math proof, so that I'm not discarding consciousness. I'm not saying like, you consciousnesses get to, go into the trash. Like, what do you do with them? What do you do with undesirable personality characteristics? What do you do with poop? What do you do with the turds that refuse to flush? You got to do something with them. And that is the challenge. So the idea of Flying Rainbow Lasagna is we're not only rearranging on a genetic level so that we don't feed those interstices anymore, and we're avoiding the membrane of death and clearing the interstices. Those beings that can't get back to an energetic state, they get to go into a state of entropy. That we could look at these two ends of the sculpture as being energy and entropy, and they are complementary, and they're not opposite, because the shape is all about non-duality, where really the outside and the inside are communicative. Here are my fingers on the outside, now my fingers on the inside, like a Mobius strip, my fingers on the outside again. Here, I'll hold it better so you can see it better. Now my fingers on the inside, on the outside. That's the whole idea, is that it resolves duality. So we're resolving things like good versus evil and hot versus cold and energy versus entropy. But we do that by saying that singularity, sometimes it's over here and it is pointing towards energy. Sometimes it's over here and it is pointing towards entropy or non-being or losing a sense of self and not being consciousness. And so there are some aspects of the overarching personality structure of the time field that are supposed to go into entropy. They're not supposed to be moving around in the time field like we are. Like a molecule that moves around has heat. A molecule that doesn't move around anymore is super, super duper cold and becomes, frozen at 0 degrees Kelvin and becomes a Bose-Einstein condensate. There's some matter that is supposed to be frozen like that. There are some consciousnesses that are supposed to be frozen. They're supposed to be no longer moving through time. So what I'm telling people that the most effective thing to do when you meet a demon is to send them into a totally entropic state. That's what hell is supposed to be, except they've been taking so long to go into entropy. They've been taking literally like 15,000 years. It's like, I'm looking at my watch, like, are they done yet? Are they done going into entropy yet? Or like, I use the analogy, like if someone fell off a really tall skyscraper and they're falling backwards and you watch them, falling down to the sidewalk, and they're like, yeah, like, nah, like they're flying backwards, and they're waving their arms. And they've been doing that for 15,000 years. And it's been going on for so long that they've like set up a little picnic area. And, they've got like a whole established society while they're falling backwards into entropy. Right. Like, you put us all out of our misery at this point. Just go into entropy, because we don't have to wait another 13 billion years until all of the stars that have ever been in existence become black holes, and all of those black holes suck all of the energy and light and heat and consciousness out of this place, and then it's finally just a totally cold entropic zone. Like, we would have that in 13 billion years, but I'm impatient. I would like to have that now. So that's my solution. And this solution is applied individually, like literally not to freak anybody out, because I know that this is like an introduction to these ideas to people who haven't seen them or whatever before. But those interstices and that genetic distortion zone, it's within each one of us, that we contain those hell realms within each one of us. So I don't want people to like claw away at their faces and be like, demons, be gone, because I've got demons inside of me. That's what I don't want. Or to look around, because when sometimes people start to awaken, they're like, there's demons everywhere. Let me get a gun and shoot them. I'm like, no, please do not get a gun to shoot the demons. But what we do need to do is heal the demons. But when I say heal them, I don't mean hug them. Like if someone is profoundly engaged in addiction, I don't mean like hug them and everything. It's like, we need to do what is right for them. And so in this case, what I mean is right is taking energy away from them. Because to put it very clearly, The only reason why these demons or occupiers of the interstices have energy in the first place is because they have stolen it. They took it all from living, embodied food eaters like you and me, and they siphoned it off into their, virtual energy banks. So it's all ill-gotten gains. And if they had to have receipts before they got to spend their energy, they'd never be able to spend it. So it would be like, hey, that's nice. You want to spend $100? Where'd you get that money from? Like, how did you earn this? Oh, you stole it? No, you can't spend that here. But they have been bending and breaking the rules of the cosmos for a very long time. So it's now time for each one of us to enforce those rules. Like, hey, no, you're not only you're not allowed to spend that energy here, because what they do in their multi-level marketing scheme is they poke and they prod the living. The low-level demons to torment and abuse the living in order to try to get energy out of it. So it's like 10 units of energy in, 100 units of energy out, and we're their little farms. So if they try to put 10 units of energy in, don't accept that, and also definitely don't emit 90 extra units of energy so that they can then feed off of it. And if anything, you get to take your energy back from them and you get to repatriate it. Just in the same way, like at the end of some of these big wars, they found all the sculptures and holy objects of a country that had been invaded, and they're like, hey, this is the invaders took this. Let's take these special items and give them back to the country that they rightfully belong to. But all of that energy that those demons use is life force energy. It's like the most sacred, holy artifact that we could possibly have. It's what we use to, make love and to make new people and to make new symphonies and to make new paintings and to heal our bodies if our bodies get sick. So it is like the most special, good stuff in the world. And these occupiers of the interstices have taken it and stolen it and repurposed it. That's a nice way of saying it, and used it in order to create a lot of poop.
Can I ask, before I ask this, the free meeting is trying to end in like 10 minutes or less. So if we would like to keep going, someone's gonna have to restart it, just to let you know.
Oh yes, of course. You can restart or I can restart, and I can also do an extended recording if you want to, that we don't have to limit, but I'm fine with whatever. I'd love, I know I run my mouth a lot. I don't want to be, you have to make sure that you get a chance to talk too.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I wanted to ask you how you came up with this idea, or how did you come up with it?
Wonderful. So it was not the type of thing where I just sat around one day and I thought like, maybe I'll just make up flying rainbow lasagna. No. I'm what I call a galactic walk-in, even though I know a lot of people have negative connotations to the word walk-in, but I'm trying to get across the idea that I as Aurora, I'm not the original inhabitant of this physical body. So this physical body used to be owned and operated and inhabited by a different ego structure that was, naturally homegrown on Earth. And basically there was a psychic attack that was also part of a brain injury. And this was satanic technology, like a directed energy weapon that destroyed aspects of the brain and neurology and killed the previous occupant. I, as an abstraction, I'm not usually in a face body like this. I'm usually in a body like this, like these colors and just, movement and polygons and tones. I perceived what was going on, and I'm also connected to the events on Earth. Like, I'm not a carpetbagger. It's not like I swooped in as an opportunist and was like, oh, good, an opportunity to profit. No, not at all. I care deeply about the people on this planet, and I've been part of the backstory that led up to the genetic squashing, so I care deeply, and I chose to flying rainbow lasagna. It was a spontaneous invention in the moment, and it's like under great duress, like in the heat of a battle. Like imagine if you were, you had helicopters bearing down on you and all sorts of bullets were flying, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna invent a new apparatus, and that's what's gonna get me out of here. That was literally what I did. I invented this portal. This is a genetic portal, a way of vibrating the DNA of this body, so that I, as a abstraction, could come into the cellular structure of this body. And the body didn't die. The body had a metabolic death, but it got held together. Otherwise, it would have just died and decomposed. And clearly, that's not what happened. It got held together really by a divine, we could call it a force field, like a divine living force field, something very, very great, prevented the body from dying so that I could flying rainbow lasagna. I mean, I invented this spontaneously in an instant, but it took time for the DNA of this body to, let's call it, learn the song, master the song, and be able to do it consistently. And that took about 18 months. So yeah, it was a very sudden, necessary invention. And then it took time for me as that abstraction to integrate into the cellular structure of this body. And now I'd like to say, like, I'm fully integrated. I'm here. Like I am on this planet. I live on Earth. I have an earth body. I eat earth food, even though I also do sun gazing. But I face all of the same challenges that a person who is naturally occurring here faces. Like I have to make electrons flow in my wire. I'm putting up my light bulb so that I have to keep the electricity on. I have to find a way to pay my rent. I face all of these same challenges. And that's like, it's kind of fair. It's kind of like, oh, okay, like you want to solve this math proof? That's fine. You're going to have to also like, you know, do it the way that so that it's something that's available to everyone. I'm trying to say that I'm not just like a millionaire, billionaire, and I sit on my golden toilet in the morning. It's not like that at all. I'm absolutely in the same level, in solidarity with all the other soldiers of consciousness here. And that this is something that each person can do. It doesn't cost $1 million. Like, yeah, you have to have a house where you live and you have to eat food and, you know, be alive and have medicine. But beyond those basic sustenance, this is something that each one of us can do with nothing more than our birthday suit. It's like it's the key. It's the key to how we get out of here, because we've been kind of crashed down in the genetic ladder of, you know, consciousness. We've been crashed down for a very long time. And so there has to be that portal upwards, or that ladder to be able to climb upwards. So yeah, this is the great unlikelihood that has been invented. It's like a new way of rearranging the Rubik's Cube of your DNA so that you don't have to die. That's the whole point. That death now becomes no longer a necessity or something that is experienced, and all the again, no offense to anyone who is profoundly religious, because God is real. Even though the church is highly corrupt, God is real and Christ consciousness is real. But the whole teaching that you have to die and then be resurrected to become immortal, I do not embrace that at all. No, really, the way to be immortal is to not die. It's like saying to stay on the road, drive off the road. No, to stay on the road, stay on the road. And the road is the road of life. And it's this wonderful life is this wonderful unlikelihood. That is this amazing symphony that's going on. And we're not the only players in the symphony. It's also on an atomic and molecular level. It's also on the level of microbes, you know, the microbes that help me digest my food in my stomach. And it's not only in this time and place, it's across time. It's in this planet, on this version, on this timeline, and it's in a sea of possibilities that's everywhere. So the whole idea is that this life symphony is a great, great unlikelihood. And it's also very, very strong and powerful. But there are all these technological societies. You want to break in?
One sec, Aurora. We're about to run out of time. I just wanted to let you know so we can restart it on my end or your end.
Good. Why don't you restart? Wait. I'm going to end the recording right now. Thank you very much. We're going to end the recording. We'll start again on part 2. Okay, so we're recording on the second part now.
Okay. I'll reiterate what I just said for people who are listening. So I'm asking Aurora to go into more, as far as practically speaking, if people are interested in changing things up in their own personal lives, how this idea of flying rainbow lasagna can actually be applied moment to moment. So you can explain that a little bit.
Definitely. It's a really good point, because Gary, you were saying that it tends to be like we're in the zone of high abstraction here, and it's true. And I tend to hang out in those areas. However, there are actual dance steps to actually do this. So the first part is we've already begun doing the flying rainbow lasagna because just learning new concepts causes DNA to change its behavior. And this is what science is calling epigenetics, but it's basically ingesting new ideas makes your DNA move in new dance movements and new formats. So the way that I do the flying rainbow lasagna, and I always like to say that I'm like an art teacher, where I'll say, here, you know, here's a paintbrush, and here's the bristles, and here's where you put the paint, and here's how you hold it. But I won't tell other people, you know, how to be an artist or what to paint or what is important or what. So I'll give you how I do the flying rainbow lasagna dance. So on the one hand, it is an inner oscillation of one's DNA. And there are lots of things that affect the dance of our DNA. Like, for example, phone prompts, those little things when you have to call the bank and it's like, if you want this, press 1. If you want this, press 2. If you want this, press 3. That affects my DNA, because I'm like, oh, I feel my life force energy is, you know, dripping away as it's like, it makes my DNA dance in slow, clunky movements that make me go toward the membrane of death. So there's plenty of examples of things.
It's like really boring commercials, right? Like it's taking your energy and it's not doing anything creative with it. And you don't want to buy the product and you don't want to listen to the commercial at the same time.
Anything that feels boring, that feeling of being bored literally means energy is being siphoned off. And
we're all very used to that, I feel, here in the realm.
Yes. So the alternative to that is joy. So one of the big things is I do a lot of things that cultivate joy. So I do flying rainbow lasagna dance every day. It's like my practice, just like having a yoga practice. So the first thing, I fuel my body. Like I don't dance on an empty stomach. I need calories for my body. And then I do sun gazing, which is the food and gas for my non-physical body. And I advocate for safe sun gazing. Like I don't stare directly at the sun with my physical eyes, because our physical eyes are delicate and they can be overwhelmed, you know, they can be burned out. So I almost always wear either a hat, or if I'm inside, I'll use the edge of the windowsill to kind of like shade it so that the sun is partial, or to do it through filtering through trees is very beautiful, so that you're not getting full sunlight going directly into your eyes. And I'm focusing with my inner eye, not my physical eye. So I do a couple of things. I sit with my back straight. I sit with my legs crossed like a pretzel. That is a comfortable way of sitting for me, but I understand not everybody's hips work in that way. So I like that because it kind of feels like my lap is making a bowl, like to contain energy. And then I put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, kind of right behind my teeth. I face the sun, and I breathe it in. Like I connect. And so also I have to tell everyone that we have this aperture here on the top of, on our forehead, that is kind of like a tendril, like a little, a finger that reaches forward. Greek tenuos means to reach out. This is our attention, and it reaches out like a tendril. So I send out the tendril of my attention to touch the sun. And then when I'm connected with the sun, I breathe that energy in, and I breathe it in several times, like several breaths, all the way up into my sinuses here, all the way down into my belly, like what is called in the Far East, my hara, my aura, like filling up the entire capacity of my body. I call it filling up my solar batteries. When neighbors see me doing this, I'm like, I'm just charging up my solar batteries. So food for my physical body, food for my non-physical body. You can say, Aurora, how do I know when I'm full of sun gazing? Well, like you feel it. You're like, okay, I'm feeling charged up. I'm ready to go. Then music is very inspiring to me. So I put on headphones because I don't want to be a bad housemate and annoy the entire neighborhood also. But if you live in a place where you can rock out and play your music as loud as you want to, put on wonderful music. And music absolutely affects our DNA. So I have a beautiful instrument over here that is tuned to 432 hertz. You can run your music at 432, whatever. I listen to regular music off of Apple Music. I'm sure it's at 440. But the point is that the feeling of the music gives me energy to do this dance. Just like music makes you feel like dancing. And I won't tell other people what to put on your playlist, but I have different songs for different feelings and different occasions. And just like the ocean, sometimes it is calm and peaceful, sometimes it's very turbulent. Flying like a lasagna, the psychic waters sometimes are very calm and peaceful, and sometimes they're very turbulent. So some days I might need Rage Against the Machine. Some days I might need some very peaceful Swan Lake waltz music. And you can shake it up, do whatever works for you. And I put on my awesome music on my headphones. And then I begin with, it's a visualization. So also I have to do basic safety, just like if I were teaching you to drive a car. I would say you got to put on your seatbelt. Your seatbelt is your Merkaba. Let me go to screen sharing so that I can show you a picture of what a Merkaba is. This means light body vessel. This is information that is transferred to us from the antediluvian sophisticated worldwide culture known as Atlantis. And it's not something that's co-opted or wrong in any way, just like a paintbrush. Even if paintbrushes have painted ugly paintings in the past, yes, they have, but that doesn't mean paintbrushes are evil or wrong. So this is basically a rotating star tetrahedron, and we have two different counter-rotating fields. And you know that you're doing it right when you get this, get the pen to work. When you get this here, this pink, I'm highlighting it in pink right now. You get this line of light that is like a tube of light that you will feel going up and down your spine, and it can connect you to the earth, and then this can be a star up here, and it can connect you to the earth down here, or you can connect to whatever things you would like to connect it to. But this is like the immune system for your non-physical energy presence. So as a good driving teacher, I'm teaching everyone, put on your seatbelt, practice your Merkaba so that you are protected. And the other thing is encryption, that our DNA, your DNA is individual to you. Each one of us has our individual code, and no one else should be able to hop into your DNA and write new things except for you. Just like this is my computer over here, and I have to authenticate it with a thumbprint. No one else has a thumbprint like me. I'm unique. And my tablet says, oh, that's Aurora. Only Aurora is allowed to come here and write things and send things out, and her emails and everything like that. No one can hijack my information and send out things pretending to be me. Do that with your DNA, and you can do whatever works for you. Like I envision literal, like my skin is crawling with an ever-changing series of letters and numbers, that I'm the only person that can know what that secret password is. And I would encourage everyone to come up with your own visualization of that. So it's like, no, I'm encrypted. I'm the artist. I'm painting this painting. No one else is going to hop in afterwards and add or remove or edit the things that I've put into this painting. And that is what this dance is. It is cosmic lovemaking, and it is being the artist of reality. And people have also asked me, like, Aurora, why don't you just do a video of it? And it's because it's really a sacred dance, and I don't want it to be exploited or objectified. It feels to me the way that some indigenous dances are. Like, it is a sacred moment when you do this, that you are connecting with life force energy, just like one does in physical lovemaking to conceive a new baby. But what we're conceiving of is not just a physical baby, it is the new baby of having experiences. Because this shape, it combines together the inner realm of thoughts and dreams and desires and wish making, and the outer realm of experienced reality. So all the things that make the soup flavor of you, like all of your desires and your wishes and your dreams and your troubles and your struggles, that all goes into the dance. Like when I get up in the morning and I read the news and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on in the world? That all goes into the dance because I'm dancing for solutions. So it's also a genetic dance that like you could do it sitting completely straight in your chair and never moving, but that's not my style. So it's a genetic dance, and it's a visualization. And then it's also something that I do with my physical body. The main point is for understanding that our DNA is doing this oscillation.
You're creating like an energetic signature, right? That's unique. I had to relate a personal anecdote of mine. I had this one idea for giving money to homeless people. And so I got like $25 bills, and I wrote something about the homeless people. So the intent was to have the $5 bills remain circulating among the homeless people. So if someone got it, they would read the message and then say, oh, I want to give this to a homeless guy, right?
Yeah.
And then I envisioned the possibility of someone else seeing that and saying, oh, this is a terrible idea, and we don't like this, and we're going to tear this up or throw it away or something. So I put my own encryption into those bills and just made it up like it's a mental, pattern that you make and give it into the thing. And I don't know exactly how I came up with that, but I was like, yeah, that will work.
That is perfect, great analogy, and that's exactly along the lines of what I'm saying. It's like, if you're making a wish, you got to make sure that no one else is going to come along and hijack or squash your wish. And that's what this is, cosmic love making, a type of wish. And so I have explicit written instructions about this, because I know I tend to express myself in videos and verbally, just extemporaneously. Really good student in one of my classes distilled it all down into a PDF, and I'm happy to share that with you, or you can put it in the video description, because I know some people do best by reading, but I don't want you to be, it's like learning a dance or learning an instrument. I don't want you to be so focused on, am I doing the steps right? Because it's really a feeling. And part of that feeling is rebelliousness, or like taking control of your own life.
It's like giving yourself permission to be creative, really.
That's right, absolutely. We're so programmed to be domesticated and have externalized authority figures that it is very radical to say, no, you're not going to tell me what to do. No other person is going to, like, this is my music. This is my dance. I'm choosing it. And truly, our bodies are the only real estate that we really own. No one else owns your body, not your mother or your father or your ancestors or your cultural heritage or the government that presently is in existence or the Pope or the church or anything like that. And that's an important articulation to make, because a lot of people think, and especially when you start to do this, it's like pulling and pressing and pulling the levers of the cosmos. And there are inborn constraints that will start to pop up and say, don't push that lever, your mom won't let you. Don't push that lever, what would God think? What would Jesus Christ think? All these different limitations come up, and you have to say, no, this is my body, this is my sculpture, this is my art project, I'm allowed to do this. And so then I begin the oscillation maneuver, and I do it at different axes. So the first thing I do is the up-down axes. And I do an 8-count beat because there are 8 flanges, and also because we often dance on the 8 count. Like here, I'll count around with it for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we do that up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what I'm doing when I do that is I'm envisioning the singularity in me is reaching out and connecting with the singularity that is in whatever I want to connect with. And usually what I do is the sun. do our beautiful, like cosmic lovemaking with our stellar partner that's in the sky. You can dance with the entire stellar network, all of the stars that are in the sky. You can flying rainbow lasagna and dance with a molecule. You can dance with another organism. You can dance with a collection of organisms. You can dance with other humans that are in this time and place. You can dance and connect with humans who are not in this time and place. So you can do a flying rainbow lasagna dance where some of your DNA is connecting with ancient, Aborigine people, or people that will live in 2 or 5 or 10,000 or 10 million years, or that might live in a far distant, different star system. This is non-local to space and time. This is about pure consciousness. So it allows us to get inspiration or genetic puzzle pieces from a variety of sources that we would not have access to those nutrients otherwise. So it's just like doing advanced jazz music. I call this the advanced jazz band. First, what you do is you just get the basic beat going, like with the drums and the bass and the, whatever, the guitar, and then add a lot of piano on top of it. So the basic, like we'll get the microbes doing the up, down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, then we're gonna change it to the side. Now we're gonna get, the palm trees going this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll get another band member going in and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then connecting all these things together, like keeping all these plates spinning at the same time, just like a musician playing all these instruments at the same time. And there's another axis that you can do, which is tumbling end over end, like this, 7, 8. So what I'll do is, in doing it's like a tumbling maneuver, like tumbling through space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So like 7 comes over the top at diagonals, and then 8 comes under the bottom at diagonals. And again, not to get too stuck in, like, if you're trying to learn to dance, like, okay, where are my feet? Am I stepping in the right way? Am I moving? It's about get the feeling. Even if you're not getting the dance movements exactly perfect, get the feeling, go with the beat, connect. And there's literally a whole symphony that is dancing like this. And the more that you dance, the better you are able to perceive the music, and the more your inner insight clears up so that you can perceive the musical score. And at a certain point, you will be able to anticipate. You will not just be like going with the band and being like, okay, now I'm playing the right note, I'm playing the right note. I know the next note that's coming is going to be D flat, or I know the next note that's coming is going to be an F, because inner vision begins to clear. That's what these paintings are. It's being able to see the next note, and the next note is an experience in time. And this is rearranging time. One is literally combining inner hopes, desires, dreams, expectations, thoughts, emotions with outer physical reality that looks like other people and other hard-edged objects. What we're doing in this exercise is we're really recognizing that each one of us is a reflection of each other, that my inside becomes the outside, and you're part of my outside. Gary is part of my outside. And then we're vibrating the membrane of the epidermis so that it becomes a moot point. And this is part of humanity coming together on a very profound level, but not just humanity. You can flying rainbow lasagna with elephants. You can flying rainbow lasagna with microbes or dragonflies or whomever. It's just the entire symphony of life coming together. And you can also do covalent bonding over time. That's like super, super advanced, but that's where you take one little electron from the moment now, and you combine it with, electrons that are available from 10,000 years ago or 20 million years in the future. Like, we're literally reweaving the embroidery of time. This is like
AP rainbow lasagna.
Say it again.
AP, like advanced placement class.
That's exactly what it is. I love it. I love it. Because also the AP classes, they're like for really engaged students. It's not like for the students that are remedial or they don't want to be there. This is for students who are like, yes, I'm in the symphony of life. I want to be here. That's a big part of it, like having that deep desire to be here. And it's not just like for Olympic athletes. Like, this can be for someone literally lying on their deathbed. They can fly rainbow lasagna and have profound, transformations of perspective and, experience and all of that. Because I'm trying to say, like, most people think like, oh, my body is not adequate. Like, oh, I'm not an Olympic athlete. Like, oh, I can't do that. That's only for special yogis and masters. Right? Like, if you do special yoga for many years, then you're allowed to do it. Like, no, this is literally for everyone. And it's for everyone right now, because this is what our planet is doing. Our planet is giving birth to a new level of perception and experience, where spirit or pure consciousness or pure energy or abstraction is imbued with matter. That we're not doing the objective materialist thing anymore, where matter is separate from mind, you know, energy is separate from matter. Now we're doing this combined experience where matter responds to mind. And what are humans? Humans are thinkers. That's our job on this planet. We're supposed to be like the neurons, like trees are like the alveoli, and the oceans are like the blood, and fish are like the red blood cells. Humans are supposed to be like the neurons, and we've been like very poorly structured neurons for a very long time. We've been making like a
neurons, right?
Making like a neurological disease in the brain instead of healthy, good music for a very long time. So then one last thing about flying rainbow lasagna, after I do all of these movements, and I feel very joyful when I'm doing them, I do a couple of things, just like with my paintings. Sometimes I might have a line out of place or something that's not perfectly right. I can erase, because I want everybody to feel like in this cosmic lovemaking and creation process, that you don't have to be so constrained, like, oh no, did I drip the paint? Did I do it wrong? Did I make a mark that's not supposed to be there? Because part of it is being free to innovate. If there are things that are not supposed to be there, one of the things that I do is this movement where I kind of shake up the loose ends and then bring them together. And that's like erasing what's not supposed to be there. I have a wonderful electric eraser that I use for my paintings. And at the end, I go through everything and I erase all the little marks that are not relevant anymore. And we each are allowed to do that in our mind creation technique. Like we're creating a reality, we want to, you know, have good things happen. And maybe your mind wandered at a certain point. Maybe, you know, just like my pen can wander or, you know, drip a piece of paint. It's not the end of the world. You're allowed to make little mistakes like that. At a certain point in the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, I bring it all together. It's almost like that point in mitosis when chromosomes come together and they make this shape. It's like organizing everything, and I bring it together and then I split it apart. And so I do these dance movements like this with my hands, and it's literally like the dance of DNA that are on a subcellular level. But, you know, I don't want people to feel like they have to copy or imitate me. Like each person needs to do their own particular unique dance. So that's, you know, another, like I'm encouraging everyone to come up with their own ways of innovating. But what matters the most is what you're doing on an internal level. And you don't stop the dance just because I take off my headphones and I get like start painting my painting. I haven't stopped dancing. Our DNA are constantly vibrating. So we continue the dance. And well, the point is, I wake up, I read the news, I grumble, then I dance, then I read the news again. And I'm like, what changed? We're rearranging reality with this little egg beater. We're rearranging reality, rearranging the possibilities on the surface of the torus. And then we can actually see the evidence of our handiwork. And it's not like many, many years from now. Like you can literally rearrange reality and then look on the news or walk out your front door and be like, wow, that is different. That's something new. That happened because I did this cosmic lovemaking.
Yeah, that it sounds similar. I made a video comparing what we have going on to like kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, to where it's you're drawing pictures basically in the sand, and then you can refresh it. Like it's constantly refreshing every second. It's just that we've been in the mindset that, oh, billions of years ago or thousands of years in the future, and it's not very that's not really correct compared to like what you actually experience moment to moment.
Great analogy. I love it. And yes, we are absolutely in the cosmic Etch-a-Sketch of time, because we can edit. We can take out parts of the past and we can write in new stuff. And when we edit the past, it absolutely affects the present and reverberates forward to the future. So this ends up becoming a very powerful tool. Like if we were X-Men or something like that, it's like, who is the most powerful X-Man or superpower person? Is it the Hulk who has big muscles? Or is it someone who could shoot lasers out of their eyes? Or is it someone who can rearrange the fabric of time and space? And it's usually some little nerdy guy, right? And he doesn't look very muscular or whatever, but he can press pause on the button of time, space, and consciousness, and he can rearrange and supersede all of the people who have lasers and big muscles. That's what we're doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And we're also doing it in a very joyous way, because that's part of like the ethics of the cosmos. It's not like we're just fighting endlessly against, endless dualistic opposition. It is moving towards what we want. So we're moving towards health and vitality and immortality, or being like a perpetual motion machine, and joy and creative expression. And that's the music of life. And the more that we contribute to the music of life, the more that these other, the consciousnesses that I described earlier that are like detritus that are not supposed to be there, they die off. They lose their energy, and we gain our energy. And at a certain point, we're like coherent light, coherent laser light, where all of the light waves are perfectly organized, and we don't have any extra stuff that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Interstasis. Yeah, it's interesting. I understand most of what you're saying. If not all of it on some level, it completely makes sense to me. I feel like a lot of people are still used to the Alan Watts called it the ceramic model of the universe, like where everything, all the physical stuff is stuck, and you are simply like finding out how not to bang your head against it all the time. And it's a little different than like the energetic model.
Definitely different. And I think we have to take a lot more personal responsibility if we are in the model where we recognize we're creating the stuff that we're bumping into. It's not just like, oh, I accidentally bumped into that thing. Like, I made that thing, and then I bumped into that thing, and then I have to ask myself why I did that as an artist or as a musician. So a lot of it is learning about like how not to be unconscious and how to create intentionally. So in my paintings, I'm very intentional. I measure things out, and I'm like, that's going to be purple. I want it to be purple. I don't like drip things around like Jackson Pollock and kind of like let things happen. And I think we have to be that way with creating reality, to say, hey, I want blah, blah event to happen. And that's like, as I say that, people might start to think, wait a minute, am I allowed to shift? Am I allowed to affect reality in that way? Am I doing, it's like, the question is, are you doing it from the lower aspect of self, like, you know, what the distorted aspect of ego, or are you connecting from your true core characteristics and playing the notes you're supposed to play? So a lot of this has to do with moving into collaboration as opposed to competition. Like if I gave you the flying rainbow lasagna, you can make anything happen that you want in the world, like the Green Lantern who gets his magic ring and he can imagine anything. You know, what would you imagine? Would you imagine like, I'm going to make a big gun and I'm going to kill everyone? That would be psychopathic, right? That would be a horrible thing to imagine. But some people would be like, oh, I'm going to imagine that I live on an island and I own everything and everyone else is my slave. Like that would be all from creating from the lowest level of, you know, survival and competition. And that really getting into these levels of higher creation, we have to change our value system and
it's
appreciate
out of the scarcity back into the abundance model.
Definitely. And also recognizing the necessity of all the other musicians. Like, I don't want to do anything with my flying rainbow lasagna dance that's going to kill all the microbes, because I need some of those microbes. They personally benefit me. So the microbes are doing their flying rainbow lasagna dance, and they're like, wait, we don't want to kill the intestinal structure that we're living within, because we need that intestinal structure to live within. So we're like, hey, maybe we should change the way that we're interacting with our planetary structure. Maybe we should change all these different things about the way we interact with humanity, like in terms of money and sustainability and all of that. That's, you know, the big part of it. It's basically ending the parasite model of being on this planet and moving into a collaboration model. We can't be here anymore if we're just taking and never giving.
Right. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Robbie, Eden, do you have any comments or questions before we wrap up?
I think I have to listen to it and practice flying rainbow lasagna dance about 3 times over for it to fully integrate, or maybe even more. Maybe it's a lifetime of learning, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
I would say it does take time to learn. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but one time I was at a little girl's birthday party and they gave her a violin, which was like a wonderful gift for her. And she took it and she sawed away on it. And it sounded like, it sounded horrible. And she gave it back to the person. She said, it's broken. And we were all laughed. We're like, oh, no, dear. It's not broken. You just have to practice and get good at it. So that's what I try to tell people. Like, our bodies, our DNA, our reality creation mechanism, it's not broken. We just have to practice and become virtuosos in order to get the results that we really want. And it can be a lifetime of practice, but joyful practice. Not like dirge, like, oh, I have to go practice my violin, but like fun, like, cool, now I get to practice reality creation and see what happens.
Right.
We absorb so much life force energy from the sun and from creation and from being out in nature. I mean, we are we absorb so much in our heavy, dense human beings that it's so beautiful to be so expressive in the world in this manner. And just like, I honor this teaching so much.
Very beautiful.
Rainbow, right?
Totally, full
Look at
rainbow.
all the possibilities instead of just like one or two.
Definitely. And all the idea of all these different layers of reality being layers of ourself. And when they all combine together, then we have that true self.
Aho.
Comprehensive.
Coherent.
Yep. Yeah.
Super.
Well, thank you, Aurora. That was really good. I appreciated it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to flap my moving mouth parts here. Share the idea of lasagna.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Aurora.
You gave me the opportunity to not flap mine so much, so it's good.
Like I said, I keep saying, like, reassure me. I feel like I'm doing all the talking here. He's like, no,
No, you're good.
Good, yes.
Ingredients. You know, like you can feel your love and your joy and your passion, and that in itself, like regardless of your words, even if you're saying blah 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 blah, like it feels so good. We can feel you. I'm sure people think they just close their eyes and they felt the vibrations of your word. That it's like your rainbow dance is alive.
Thank you very much for that. I sometimes think that the words, like the actual language, because it's so hacked, our language is so hacked, that it's just a ruse. It's just like an arbitrary thing that I'm talking about. And that what's really going on here is that we're talking on this deeper telepathic level and we're sharing on an energy level. And like, yeah, I like to think if I weren't wearing this face, you guys would still be able to recognize me from the joyous, rainbow, lighthearted, energy structure that I have. That's who I really am in whatever face I'm wearing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Any parting thoughts you want to leave people with before we?
No, thank you. I just thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to lasagnify people. It's what I joke about. Like I'm emitting the lasagna vibration and I get to like a beam that I get to lasagnify everyone. And then it's consensual. So if people like this music and if they want to join the symphony, then they get to join the symphony too. But again, it's all just optional, not mandatory. And it's no pressure. If you want to be in the AP band, come audition and practice the instrument.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I guess that's it. That's it for now.
Wonderful. Then I'll sign off on the recording that I'm doing over here on the hard drive, okay?
Okay.
Sounds wonderful. And thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Yes, thank you.